We're tracking two major developments in former President Trump's legal battles this hour. In Florida, the former president is in court right now as we speak, and his legal team is arguing that special counsel Jack Smith's classified documents case should be thrown out entirely. Meanwhile, over in Georgia, we are awaiting any moment now a judge's ruling on whether or not to disqualify Fulton County DA Fani Willis from the state's election interference case. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kayleigh McEnany, here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Emily Campagno. Also joining us, former NFL sideline reporter and host of the Michelle Tafoya podcast, Michelle Tafoya, and Fox News contributor, attorney, and retired NYPD inspector, Paul Morrow. We also have this, Emily. I'm going to get to you on audio in just a moment. But before that, I want to get to this Wall Street Journal columnist, Daniel Henniger. He claims that Democrats are trying to use the legal system as lawfare to take down Donald Trump. His latest op-ed reads in part, if Democrats had limited their legal offensive to Mr. Smith's two federal initiatives, conservatives would have absorbed it as politics as usual. However degraded that benchmark, but the American left never knows when to stop, so it is waging the Get Trump legal assault on every imaginable front. And he noted that the lawsuits have backfired politically, and we'll get to that in a moment. But turning to the Georgia case in particular, I want to play some audio. You don't often get to hear judges give radio interviews, and I was fascinated to hear Judge McAfee, who's been praised for being pretty neutral in all of this. I was fascinated to hear him. Listen to what he had to say.
I gave myself a deadline because I knew everyone wanted an answer, and I'll tell you, an order like this takes time to write. There's a lot that I have to go through, and so I'll emphasize this. I've had a rough draft and an outline before I ever heard a rumor that someone wanted to run for this position. So the result is not going to change because of politics. I am calling it as best I can in the law as I understand it. So I still feel like I'm on track to having that done by the deadline that I put on myself.
Really interesting to hear what's going through his mind.
And you contrast that, Kayleigh, with Dan Henninger's point from the op-ed that you read from earlier that said the Democrats' use of lawfare on this scale makes it likely that the respect for the law will decline, and dangerously so, among much of the American public. And he goes on to say essentially that you guys have beaten a dead horse a million times, right? If you had brought one or two lawsuits, maybe one or two charges, the American people, maybe they would have bought it. But the fact that you have resurrected and then beaten this horse countless times mean, as he says, at least half the country is coming to believe that the legal system is being swallowed by rank political partisanship. And he says, worth it? And my response to the judge's clear articulation of a normal deliberative process is that it doesn't matter, because the mainstream left will tell you if he decides to rule against Trump, they'll say, yes, it was great. And if he does rule in favor of him, they'll say, oh, well, he's political too. There is no amount of articulation that the judges can say. And we saw this, by the way, during the State of the Union, when the President of the United States decided to shame the justices who made absolutely correct decisions, and he used them as props and pawns during his speech. He shamed them for being deliberative and thoughtful. And here we have a judge saying, this is what I do. This is why it takes 2 weeks. We'll see how the mainstream media responds.
Harris, and as you look at those pictures and consider Dan Henninger's op-ed, there's simply no doubt that these legal cases put a tailwind behind former President Trump for the primary. And you start looking ahead to the general, and our Fox News poll in Arizona shows him up by 2, and then Pennsylvania up by 4.
You know, part of that is because the former president, Donald Trump, has been able to show the weaponization of what happens when your opponent has the Department of Justice on their side, or so seemingly. So, I mean, that's part of it. But the other part is when the president speaks, I mean, I watched that talk he gave yesterday in Wisconsin. I don't know that he's a powerful advocate for himself right now. He had a lot of energy at the State of the Union, didn't have that same energy yesterday, or really since I've seen him speak. And we take it enough here on Fox that we get to see him almost every day now. He's on this 20-place blitz right now. I think that's really what's driving some of these numbers, too, in those swing states. I mean, Trump is able to be the same person when he's out as when he's in court. He comes out, he speaks, so on and so forth. We've seen such a decline in the president. And you don't have to be a doctor to say that. Just watch with your own eyes if you don't believe it. And so I think that's part of this, too. But the whole picture, it's so interesting what Emily pointed out. he didn't just go after the U.S. Supreme Court in total. He went out after those left judges, after the judges that he thought would go his way, the justices. And it shouldn't be a 9-0 with one voice. And that tells you everything, that part of this might have been pre-gamed, at least for him, his team and in his mind, and the narrative's not quite cooking the way that it's supposed to. The American public is very smart, and they are letting us know through uncommitted votes in some states, with Biden in mind, that he's got to do something different, and he better make it fast. And getting younger isn't going to be an option for him.
No, and Paul, so you have Pennsylvania, Trump up 2, and then you have Arizona, Trump up by 4. But these are head-to-head polls, doesn't include RFK Jr. When RFK is involved, those numbers get tighter. In Pennsylvania, for example, it becomes a tie. But what I'm interested in, let's stick with head-to-head, Hispanic voters in Arizona. Check this out. You have Biden at 49, Trump at 43. Biden's supposed to be running away with Hispanic voters. He's not. Then you go to non-white voters, 48, 44. He's supposed to be running away with non-white voters. He's not. And really where the ball game is here, you might see an election with new coalitions, perhaps these groups moving towards Trump, but they're both pulling in the same number of voters in their party. 83%, for example, in one state, and 82, 81% in the other state. So my point is, as Biden makes his play for the progressive left, Trump's going to need to make the play for the more establishment-minded Republican voter to run away with the election.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, let's go back to State of the Union. I think that while the Democratic Party took a very big victory lap after the State of the Union, right? Wow, he was powerful, he was strong, he was compelling. Let's put it really on point here. He blew it. Because the only people he convinced were those who were already convinced. That was a hyper-partisan speech to the base, and the real base, the hyper-partisan base, the progressive base. That changed nobody's mind. But what it also did was concretized him as almost certainly the candidate. So realistically, what happened at the State of the Union was, A, it's definitely Biden. B, he's not going to change as his poll numbers continue to go down. His State of the Union was a great night for the right, because he won't change, and now he's at, what, 37.5% as of yesterday under Real Clear? And Hispanics...
Yeah, he came down, actually, a little bit since that address.
Because he alienated anybody who might have had an open mind. And what you're saying, Kayleigh, I think is exactly on target. If you're an Hispanic voter, if you're a black voter, you're not seeing any change to the things that are impacting your life. And let's go right to it. Immigration. You know, as you see, Jesse Waters does the man on the street things. Johnny goes out, he's on the beach in Miami, right? You know, it's girls in bikinis, the kids all muscled up.
We know what's happening.
They think they're talking about drinking and everything else. He puts a mic in their face and they go, yeah, what's with all the migration? I mean, it's penetrating even those voters.
That's a great point.
So,
and most of them are not sober.
So let me just
and they got a few drinks in them.
Let me put an exclamation point on the point you just made about the spring breakers. Michelle, this is young voters. This is under 35. Again, head to head. You see Trump winning under 35 in Arizona, 49-41. And then under 35 in Pennsylvania, he's winning 49-47. Again, this is just a poll, but maybe the spring breakers have woken up, Paul.
The kids vote,
maybe they're spreading the word and trying to make this happen. I think the other interesting development was the Robert Hur hearings this week, because what they showed was that Biden, over the course of many years, stuck away these documents, took them probably from skiffs as a senator, and
he did take them from those.
He took them, right? And this is a pattern that he had over the course of his career. But no charges, okay? And Hillary Clinton, kind of same thing, no charges. Donald Trump, charges. This goes back to lawfare. And you also see this development down in Georgia with 6 of the charges being dropped against him. So there's a little bit of the flaking away of that. Now, you can try to compare and contrast. If you're saying that both men took documents and put them where they willingly and put them where they weren't supposed to be and they were insecure, so why is one being, prosecuted and the other one is not? Because he's as one person put it, a senile, old man who is going to get kind of coddled in court. It doesn't make sense, and people see it, and they see this disjointed application of the law. So I think that's been interesting as well. These polls are fascinating, particularly with the younger voters. I'm really curious about why that is and why Trump may be sort of capitulating on TikTok a little bit to keep those young voters on his side.
Thirsty.
Yes, and I will say, I believe that I would love to see the internal polls of the Biden campaign. I think they're seeing a mutiny among progressives. That's the only reason you give a State of the Union speech like you did. Right. It's the only reason you send Kamala to an abortion clinic today, first president or vice president to ever go to one. It's the only reason you make comments on a hot mic that you know is hot at the State of the Union, empathizing with Gaza at the expense of Israel and Netanyahu. You have a mutiny among progressives.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.